All right, guys, you know me. I appreciate a good finesse, right? And Lindsey Graham in this interview after the acquittal of President Trump is definitely finessing. Now, this is not a finesse that is Lindsey Graham trying to be deceptive, right? This is not a McConnell finesse. This is a finesse in the sense that Lindsey Graham is saying exactly what he needs to say in order to win, right? Because that's ultimately, at the end of the day, what it's about. It's about winning, right? And I throw Lindsey Graham in the same category that I throw Kevin McCarthy in. He's one of those Republicans that understands that, okay, I can't come out here and say that President Trump had absolutely no wrongdoing at all, or he didn't have anything to do with it, because according to the mainstream perception, right, the average person, obviously that's going to be a lie, right? Obviously that's going to look like that they're not in touch with reality. So they're going to say things like, oh, President Trump should take responsibility, that President Trump said things that led up to this. But at the same time, they're also going to say, well, I don't think he's guilty, and that the Republican Party needs him specifically for 2022. And I hope you guys get what I'm saying here about these politicians. A lot of people want to say that, you know, Kevin McCarthy, you know, is a traitor or he's a backstabber. And I don't necessarily agree with that. Kevin McCarthy is actually saying exactly what he needs to say to ride the fine line of keeping the Republican Party together. Okay, because this party is on the brink of collapse, right? When you have somebody like Mitch McConnell come out and basically say that the president could, borderline should, be arrested, right, and could face criminal charges, that's a big deal. I mean, McConnell is the kingmaker in the Republican Party, right? So when he comes out and he says something like that, he is speaking for a lot of people in the party, right? And whatever he says goes. That's just kind of how it is, right? So McConnell's obviously in that camp of, okay, I'm not really for Trump, but I'm not going to go as far as to completely X him out of the party, even though I want to get rid of him. Kevin McCarthy and Lindsey Graham are one of those people that's like, okay, we still need Trump. I'm going to say what I need to say publicly, and condemn what I need to condemn so that I don't look, you know, like a hack to the mainstream media. And then there's the part of the party like Mitt Romney and, you know, Susan Collins and some of the other Republicans. It's just like, we just hate Trump. We want to get rid of him. We don't want him to be a part of the party at all, right? And then obviously you have those people that are just pro-Trump, right? So that's kind of how things are divided. And I think that the group that Lindsey Graham and Kevin McCarthy reside in is the group with the mindset that is going to give the Republican Party the best chance of winning in 2022. Okay? And let me also say this too, because this is important. A lot of people come in my comment section and be like, why are you talking about 2022 as if, you know, things didn't happen in the last election that would prevent the Republicans from winning in 2022? Here's my response to that. The Republicans were projected to get blown out in the House. The Republicans won seats in the House during this election. The Republicans were projected to get blown out in the Senate. The Republicans tied the Senate. So based on empirical evidence in terms of what actually happened, the results that we have, Republicans actually did way better than expected considering what they had projected in the polls. So I'll just leave that at that. But let's take a listen to Lindsey Graham and listen to what he has to say regarding the future of the Republican Party and Trump moving forward.
Thank you.
Senator, let me ask you, have you spoken to President Trump since the acquittal yesterday? And if so, what was his reaction?
Yeah, I spoke to him last night. He was grateful to his lawyers. He appreciated the help that all of us provided. You know, he's ready to move on and rebuild the Republican Party. He's excited about 2022, and I'm going to go down to talk with him next week, play a little golf in Florida. And I said, Mr. President, this MAGA movement needs to continue. We need to unite the party. Trump plus is the way back in 2022. He's mad at some folks, but I understand that. My goal is to win in 2022, to stop the most radical agenda I've seen coming out of the Democratic presidency of Joe Biden. We can't do that without Donald Trump, so he's ready to hit the trail, and I'm ready to work with him.
And see, this is what I really appreciate about Lindsey Graham in this interview. What I really appreciate is that he's just being overt. He's just like, we need Trump to win in 2022. And he's 100% right. The Republicans do need Trump to win in 2022 because when it comes down to these House elections and the Senate elections, right? Specifically more in regards to the House. I mean, these deep red districts, you don't want to risk losing deep red districts because you cut off President Trump, right? The Republicans need to hold on to as much as they can hold on to, more than anything, right? So if they cut Trump off and say, oh no, we're done with Trump, we move on, then the deep red districts, right, that typically would just be Republican no matter what, they may now become in danger, right? And not only that, obviously, you're going to have some issues trying to win kind of the purple districts that are mixed. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to lose traditionally red territories because you cut off the president. Because people basically didn't want to show up to vote because they're mad that the Republican Party got rid of Trump. That's what you don't want to happen. Okay? And that's what Lindsey Graham is trying to prevent. Okay? The only way that they can win in 2022 is going to have to be through Trump. This is a true statement. And what Lindsey Graham is saying is exactly what he needs to say in order to make that happen. And the Republican Party needs to stay together with Trump. That's how it has to happen.
Well, let me ask you about one person that he might be mad at, and tell me if he is or he isn't. Mitch McConnell, who made a curious speech yesterday in which he basically said the president is guilty, but that the Senate doesn't have the power to convict, to act against a former president. What did he think of McConnell's speech? What did you think of McConnell's speech?
Well, number one, I was a bit surprised, but I heard this in 1998. I've been in 3 of the 4 impeachments. I'm sorry about that, but the bottom line, in 1998, you had a lot of Democrats acquit Clinton, but got on the floor and said how bad he was. So, Nancy Pelosi called us all cowards. I don't think most Republicans care what she thinks. Now, I think Senator McConnell's speech, he got a load off his chest, obviously. But unfortunately, he put a load on the back of Republicans. That speech you will see in 2022 campaigns. I would imagine if you're a Republican running in Arizona or Georgia or New Hampshire, where we have a chance to take back the Senate, they may be playing Senator McConnell's speech and asking you about it as a candidate. And I imagine if you're an incumbent Republican, there are going to be people asking you, will you support Senator McConnell in the future? So I like him, Senator McConnell. He worked well with President Trump. I think it...
You don't have a choice but to like him, Lindsey. Again, Mitch McConnell is the kingmaker in the Republican Party, right? If you guys haven't figured out. He also said that he worked well with Trump. Well, of course, because McConnell was kind of running the show. Right? If what happened with the stimulus hasn't showed you guys, McConnell has a lot of power, right? I would argue based off what we've seen, right, from McConnell, right? And I'm not just talking about the stimulus that happened. I mean, I'm talking about like the infrastructure bill, some other stuff that Trump may or may not want to do. I mean, we could be talking about healthcare. There's a ton of issues that I think that Trump would have done a lot more on if it wasn't for Mitch McConnell. I really, really believe this. Okay, so to be quite honest with you, McConnell, to a certain extent, when it comes to domestic policies that need legislation, he is just as powerful as the president. And he's shown that time and time and time again, right? A lot of what happened during the Trump presidency was basically Mitch McConnell's policy, okay? And again, guys, I mean, some people may disagree with me on this. I'm just saying. Right? I think there are things that Trump wanted to do that he just was not able to do because Mitch McConnell was just like, no, we're not doing this. I mean, the perfect one that comes to mind, obviously, the stimulus, and then the infrastructure bill, which they're going to let the Democrats take credit for that, which, I think is a bad move by the Republicans. Letting the Democrats always flank them on good ideas that's going to create jobs is really dumb, but McConnell was like, no infrastructure. We're not doing that. Trump wanted it. He ran on it. McConnell didn't care. So when I say that, I think McConnell is probably just as influential as Trump, just as powerful as Trump during Trump presidency to a certain extent when it comes to legislative issues. The empirical evidence backs that up. And guys, I've studied McConnell quite a bit because I wanted to get a better perspective in terms of his philosophy and why he believes what he believes, why he does the things that he does. And Apparently, I think back during the Bush administration, McConnell had basically adopted this philosophy in which he believed that the Republicans don't need the presidency at all to get what they want done. As long as they have the judicial system and the legislator, right, a certain amount of power in the legislator, they don't need the presidency. Presidency doesn't matter, right? Because, I mean, a lot of what Mitch McConnell does is based off obstruction. As long as they have enough power to obstruct and to appoint the judges that they want periodically, right, to basically focus on that, the Republicans can accomplish whatever agenda that they want. Typically, the agenda doesn't involve passing massive amounts of legislation, unless it's like tax cuts or something like that. But based off how McConnell has fundamentally operated and led the Republican Party, he's kind of right. The Republicans don't need the presidency to do what they want to do, right? In terms of what their current operating role is in the legislature, they don't need a presidency. All they have to do is make sure whoever's in power can't do what they want to do, or at the very least, if they do something, then Republican priorities are taken care of. That's McConnell's philosophy.
I think his speech is an outlier regarding how Republicans feel about all this. I thought the impeachment trial was not only unconstitutional, I condemn what happened on January the 6th, but the process they used to impeach this president was an affront to rule of law. He's the first president to ever be impeached without a lawyer, without a witness, without ability to confront those against him, and the trial record was a complete joke, hearsay upon hearsay, and we've opened Pandora's box to future presidents. And if you use this model, I don't know how Kamala Harris doesn't get impeached if the Republicans take over the House, because she actually bailed out rioters, and one of the rioters went back to the streets and broke somebody's head open. So we've opened Pandora's box here, and I'm sad for the country.
Now, again, good point by Lindsey Graham. Again, Lindsey Graham is on point in this interview, right? If the Republicans have some cojones and they take back the House, right, and maybe even they can get the Senate, who knows? Kamala, I think there's an argument to be made here when you open Pandora's box about impeachment. So again, like I've been saying, my biggest thing with this impeachment trial is precedent that it sets. It is the precedent. Precedent matters in politics. You can't take this type of stuff lightly. And the Democrats are really playing a dangerous game here. Like I say, if the Republicans can get it together, if everybody can start talking like Lindsey Graham, I think they're going to be on the right track. Now, let's skip forward a little bit ahead in this interview, in which Lindsey Graham is going to address Nikki Haley's thoughts on President Trump's future moving forward.
But to my Republican colleagues, this is a two-way street. 90% of the Republican Party thought this impeachment was a partisan exercise. That's what I thought. He is out of office. And so to the Republican Party, if you want to win and stop a socialist agenda, we need to work with President Trump. We can't do it without him. And to you, President Trump, you need to build the Republican Party stronger. I'm into winning. And if you want to get something off your chest, fine, but I'm into winning.
Senator, one final question. Nikki Haley, the former governor of your state of South Carolina, made some pretty tough comments about Donald Trump this week. I want to put them up on the screen. She said he went down a path he shouldn't have, and we shouldn't have followed him, and we shouldn't have listened to him, and we can't let that ever happen again. Senator, is Governor Haley wrong about Donald Trump's future in the Republican Party?
Yeah, Donald Trump is the most vibrant member of the Republican Party. The Trump movement is alive and well. People believe that he brought change to Washington. Policy-wise, it was long overdue. All I can say is that the most potent force in the Republican Party is President Trump. We need Trump plus. And at the end of the day, I've been involved in politics for over 25 years. The president is a handful, and what happened on January the 6th was terrible for the country, but he's not singularly to blame. Democrats have sat on the sidelines and watched the country be burned down for a year and a half and hadn't said a damn word, and most Republicans are tired of the hypocrisy. So no, Nikki's wrong about President Trump. North Carolina, the biggest winner, I think, of this whole impeachment trial is Laura Trump. My dear friend Richard Burr, who I like and have been friends to a long time, just made Laura Trump almost a certain nominee for the Senate seat in North Carolina to replace him if she runs. And I'll certainly be behind her because I think she represents the future of the Republican Party.
Yo, mic drop for Lindsey Graham right there. Mic drop for Lindsey Graham. So he addresses Nikki Haley directly. Said no, he thinks that she is wrong. And again, this shows a distinction here between the factions in the Republican Party and what they're kind of thinking. Okay, people like Nikki Haley and Mitch McConnell's of the world, right? The more establishment types, and Lindsey Graham's establishment. He's just establishment in a different type of way, right? He's establishment that's trying to walk the fine line between, Trump supporters who the establishment doesn't like anymore, right? Where they're like, the establishment's done with. And again, staying a part of the establishment. Okay, he's not going all the way to the Matt Gaetz realm of the political party, right? And the MTGs, right? And the Lauren Boeberts, where it's just like, oh no, we're just pro-Trump, right? He's trying to walk a fine line here, right? And what he's telling his establishment buddies is that, listen, guys, we cannot win without the other side of our party. We can't win without them. If they're not on board, if Trump is not on board, then we're toast, right? They might as well become Democrats because otherwise the party is done. It's toast. The GOP cannot afford to lose votes, guys. They can't afford to lose any votes at all, right? So when you can't afford to lose votes, when you're up against this behemoth in the media giant, having such a leftist spin on everything, you got to have all the manpower you can. And at least in the short term, at least if you're thinking short term, if that's the case, then you can't just let go of Trump. You got to find a fine balance in which you can condemn, right? You can place some blame where you need to place blame. But at the same time, it's like, listen, we still in this together, right? We going to move forward with everybody together. That's the right messaging here. Lindsey Graham really killed this interview, in my opinion. And I think it's kind of the stance the Republicans should be taking right now if they want to have a chance of winning in 2022 and reloading. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black Conservative Perspective. Peace.